for nobody else in the room. He's that kind of God.
Just for a couple of moments, I want to examine the subject title, I'm buried, but my tomb has power. Yeah. You want to take your seats in the presence of the Lord. Yeah. Buried, but my tomb has power. I told you I was going in a whole different direction, but it ain't going to take me long to get where I need to be. God help me. This particular pericope excites a story that's nuzzled in the back of my mental Rolodex. One of our friend's favorite stories, there was a man who went to a pawn shop, and the man got in the pawn shop. There was the violin that was sitting on the shelf. violin was a bit raggedy, bridge was broken, there were strings missing. The man looked at the violin and he asked the man behind the counter, could he have that violin? The man says, well, that violin isn't for sale because it's too badly damaged. The man says, well, no, I need that particular violin. So the man behind the counter says, no, I can't sell you that. It's too damaged. It's missing strings. The bridge is broken, and it would do you a dishonor for me to sell you this particular violin. However, here's what I'll do. If you can get this particular violin to work, I'll sell it to you. The story tells us that the man behind the counter gives the violin to the patron. He goes in the back. He's back there for some time, fiddling around, and the proprietor of the pawn shop begins to hear something coming from the back. He stands and waits a little while, and he continues to hear what sounds like violin music coming from the back. So finally the man comes out with the violin, and he's still playing. The owner says, wait a minute, I need you to explain to me how in the world you got this particular broken, damaged, missing strings violin to work. The man turns the violin around and he shows him his initials on the inside. He says, this has been mine all along. God help me in here. The problem is that for many of us, we've been trying to get back to our regular course of use, however you've been putting yourself in the hands of individuals that didn't own you. God help me in here. I feel like preaching, but I can't be loud. The Bible tells us, verse number 20. I'm going to holler to it in a minute, I promise you. The Bible tells us, verse number 20, it says, then Elijah died. They buried him, and the raiding bands from Moab invaded the land in the spring of the year. Now, first we have to understand, before we talk about the man that died, we have to understand where he was buried. So please understand that you have to understand who Elisha was to Israel before he died. Before Elijah dies, he is the voice of God for Israel. He is the representative of God. He is the embodiment of God for the people of God. So Elisha dies, and it's almost as if now God is missing. What do you do when your connection with God is gone and you have no idea where to find it? What do you do when the conduit that you had to God is gone, and now you're wondering and trying to figure out, how now do I hear from God? I still got the same troubles. I still have the same situations. I still have the same heartache. I still have the same lonely moments. I still have those same depressed moments. But somehow or another, my connection with God is missing. What do you do then? Anybody ever been in a place where you know who you are, but you don't feel like who you know you are? Maybe I'm just talking to me. Anybody in the room ever knew who you were, but you really couldn't feel who you were? You knew you were victorious, but you felt like a complete loser. God help me in here. You knew you had it all together, but you felt like it was depression around every corner. You knew exactly who you were. However, everything in your life makes you feel the opposite of what you know you are. You know you're anointed, but you don't feel anointed. You know you're called by God, but you don't feel called by God. You know that you're the head and not the tail. However, Bishop, I don't feel like all that today. I know I'm supposed to be the lender, but I still feel like the borrower. God, I don't understand how in the world this all correlates and how it makes sense. The Bible tells us in Romans chapter 5, verse number 1, it says, therefore, having justified by faith, we have peace with God through Jesus Christ, through whom also we have access by faith into grace, in which we stand and rejoice in the hope of the glory of God. Simply meaning, while I'm falling, grace is still holding me standing. God. Can I tell you that God will not let you fall? Yeah. I gotta hurry up. I ain't got time to do all of that. Watch this. Even when the connection feels dead, grace will keep you standing. Even when the connection is dead, God has this wonderful little thing he calls grace that keeps you standing. You say, Bishop, I don't understand grace. See, grace is that thing that God gives you that you absolutely don't deserve. God help me. Grace is that thing that God gives you when you know that everything about you does not measure up to where you are, but somehow or another, when the bottom has been knocked out and you should be falling, somehow or another, you still feel suspended, God help me, in victory. Grace is that thing that keeps you when it feels like everything that's hitting you should knock you flat on your back. Grace is what keeps you standing in the face of the enemy that is determined to take you out. Grace is that thing. Oh, so you got to move. The Bible tells us that grace will keep you, allows you to rejoice in the hope of the glory of God. It may look dead. I wish somebody understood and knew that glory is coming. Watch the enemy. It wasn't great armies that the Bible says that are coming now to attack the people of God now that the mouth of God is gone. There aren't great armies. The Bible says that these are small raiding. God help me here. These are small raiding camps that are coming to attack the people of God. Can I tell you that when you feel disconnected from God, He ain't got to send an army after you. Because it seems as if those small little things that nip at you are just as big as having a whole army against you. I wish I could talk to some real folk in here tonight. The stuff that shouldn't even piss you off is making you flip over everything in your house and you can't figure out why. The stuff that shouldn't bother you in regular conversation now seems to make you look at somebody like you can't stand the very air that they are breathing. The stuff that shouldn't bother you on a normal everyday circumstance has you in your bed at night crying, trying to figure out how to make it work. He doesn't have to send an army when you're disconnected. Text tells us that he sends small raiding troops because the enemy understands that when you don't feel embodied by a very living God, and when you're standing alone, then you are almost, you're just as vulnerable as somebody who's not a believer. I'll help you. The Bible tells us that at the beginning, Genesis chapter, around about chapter 3, Jesus shows up after Adam and Eve had covered their own selves. God help me. Because they understood they now put their place outside of the covering of God. They decided to make up their own covering. That's a whole other message for a whole other time. But he goes and he tries to call them and they don't answer. Jesus calls them and nothing happens. Nobody's responding because the connection is broken. Can I tell you that Jesus can be right in your very environment, but when the connection is broken, God help me, you can't even hear your own salvation. I got to move. I said I was going to holler. Get out of here. I felt like preaching this morning. I probably should have did. But Elijah, voice of God, he's gone. He's buried. So the people who are burying the man now gets afraid. Not because there's an army coming, but because there are small raiding troops that are coming and pillaging everything. Can I tell you, please don't let nobody carry you that gets scared at the first sign of danger. Don't help me here. In this season, you can't afford to hang out with scary folk. You can't afford to hang out with folk that's going to drop you. God, help me in here. You can't afford to hang out with folk that's going to drop you at the first sight of danger. Come here, Mephibosheth. Can I tell you that the reason that Mephibosheth was crippled in the first place because it was a woman carrying him that didn't have the strength to carry him and run at the same time. Bible tells us that they got scared and they dropped him in the tomb. Now the great part, the wonderful part about it is every now and then God will allow you to fall just so he can show you that he's always there. You said, Bishop, you told us that the man was dropped in a tomb that didn't necessarily belong to him, and he was dropped because those that were carrying him were afraid. Can I tell you that every now and then God will allow the enemy to show up right where you are at the exact moment that you are, so that you can be dropped in a place that you can be able to recognize who God is. Can I tell you that when they dropped this man in Elijah's tomb, the text gives us no indication that they knew it was Elijah's tomb. They just dropped him in the tomb because they were scared. And I tell somebody in the room that every now and then your circumstances does not predicate the victory that comes on the other side. It may not look like you're about to get up, but can I tell you that just because you failed, I need you not to lie there. I need you to please trust the fact that if God allows you to fall, then he's more than God enough to go ahead and allow you to get back up. I wish I had somebody in here today that knows and understands that if God allows you to fall in a place that then God has already made provision for you to begin to get ready to get started. Now watch the text. Watch the text. The Bible tells us plainly that the man is dead. Simply meaning that he has no choice, no decision about where he's buried or how he even gets there. I'm getting ready to get out of here, but can I tell somebody in here that the truth of the matter is that this dead man correlates to a lot of you all's lives? Say, Bishop, that's mean. That's a real mean statement. I promise you it's a very valid statement, because there are a lot of us who are just moving through this thing we call life. We're moving through it with no purpose, with no direction, with no intent. And so there we're just being carried from place to place, waiting for those that are carrying us to drop us because they don't have the capacity to carry you. But I need somebody in here to understand that just because you're dead doesn't mean that God has already made preparation for you to get back up. You said, Bishop, I don't understand. There's all kinds of things in my life that seem to be dead. My money is dead. My relationships are dead. My mental stability is dead. My ability to be emotionally connected is dead. God, I just don't understand. It seems like I'm just a walking corpse in this thing we call life. It don't make much sense to me how it is God can even use me in this season, because it looks and feels like everything about me seems to be dead. But I wish I had about 2 or 3 sanctified folk in here that know and understand that just because I look dead, as long as God has allowed some people to carry me to my place of destination, and there's still hope on the other side. Let's get to the course of the text. I need you to understand that now we're getting ready to understand why he was dropped where he was dropped. Because please understand that the man is completely dead. He has no cognitive ability cognitive understanding about where he's going. But can I tell you that even when you don't understand where God is taking you, God has already made provision for you to get back up. I wish I had somebody in the room who knew and understand that even though I might not be able to understand it, I might not be able to do it for myself, I might not even be able to talk to the folk that are carrying me, I thank God that he's already made provision, that even though things in my life might seem dead, God has already made provision for me to get up and where I am. No, she can't holler yet. Text tells us. Text tells us that now this dead man is being carried and then he is dropped. Can I tell somebody in here that God has methodically set up for you to be able to be carried even though you had no destination in mind? Folks, that don't make sense. I promise you it does, because some of you are sitting in the room right now and trying to figure out how you got where you are. God, help me in here. There's 2 or 3 of you in here that are right now trying to figure out how in the world you're at the destination that you are right now, because everything about you, there is no forward mobility. It seems like everything around you is stagnant. Nobody around you knows where you should be or how you should get there. But I need you to understand that God has already made provision for you to be able to stand again. Now, the Bible tells us that the man is then dropped in Elijah's tomb. God help me in here. Now watch, the Bible gives us no indication that the man gets up and tells anybody anything.
That's right. That's right. That's it.
I'm 2.5 minutes over. The Bible tells us that the man is dropped in the tomb. Verse number 21 says, and so it was, as they were burying a man, that suddenly they spied a band of raiders. And they put the man in the tomb of Elijah. And the man was let down in the tomb. And the bones of Elijah. And he revived and stood on his own feet. Now watch the text. The crazy part about the text is, oh God, I gotta get out of here. The crazy part about the text is that when he dropped down in the tomb, there was nobody there that could give any validation to the fact that they had given him any strength to be able to stand again. There was nobody standing around that could take any credit for being able to say that he did anything for the man that was carried and dropped in the tomb. As a matter of fact, there was nobody there. Lord, there was nobody there that were able to say that they had any power with the man getting up from his tomb. Because every now and then, God will allow you to be carried by individuals who have no power to raise you up again. Because God is a jealous God. And he needs to be able to claim every victory. He needs to be able to claim every glory that comes on your life. Every now and then, God will set you up and allow you to be dropped in a place where only he can get the glory from your life. Is there anybody here that knows and understands that God will allow you to get up when it seems like there was no chance of you ever waking up again? I wish I had somebody in the room that can give God glory, because even though they set me up to be buried, my tomb has power. It has power to resurrect every dead thing that the enemy took from you. To be able to now revive everything that the enemy took from you. They carried you to the place that seemed to be your final destination. But is there anybody here that knows and understands that God is getting ready to allow you to stand when others have already buried you? Is there anybody in the room that's ready now to be carried? I'm all right. If I sit there yesterday, I'm all right. If y'all had a procession on my in. The tomb you buried in has power already orchestrated by a very living God to get you back up and to get you back on course. Please don't think that because God has allowed you to take this course, that God is going to allow you to stay in the place where you are. He's more than God enough to set up victory even though you had no idea it was coming. Father God, we thank you now for all that you have done, all that you're doing. Thank you for this word for your people. Thank you for reminding us that even when all seems lost, you can set it up that even my place of death has victory. God, we bless you. We thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. And thank God. Listen, let me see the hands of everybody in the room that's saved and sure about it. Say, Bishop, what does that mean? That means that the Lord came back today. But you wouldn't have to bargain with him. You wouldn't have to try and figure out if you're going with him. Bless God. Grateful. We're getting ready to go. Getting ready to take our offering and move on. We're grateful that God has allowed us to be able to come back and worship again. It's good to see you, man. Grateful that God has predestined this time and space in the earth that we would share together. Grateful for the pastor of this house and the person of Bishop Holcomb who's allowed us to come and worship. Listen, y'all, I don't plan on being here very long. We open now while we're renovating our next place of worship. I told our leaders I don't plan on being here past August, which gives us about 6 months to get what we need to get out of here. There isn't a lot of work we need to do, but there is still work. So I'm going to ask that you all would prepare yourselves to give and to we might get out of here. Can y'all help us celebrate these awesome musicians, man? If you need to give via Cash App, it's $KC Worship Center. $KC Worship Center. Kids keep it to this is Worship Center. You'll see the logo and all that good stuff, so you won't send money to the wrong church. Let's go. I didn't say you